Hello, and welcome to Tuesday Talks by Abir Pothi. Today, we are joined by Meera Warrior, whose work across Kala Ghoda Arts Festival, Art of India, and her firm Kala Nomad offers a fascinating lens into the world of art festivals. We'll be talking about how festivals support artists, nurture creativity, and build cultural ecosystems that go far beyond the event itself. Welcome to Tuesday Talks, Meera. It is such a pleasure to have you here. You have worked across festival production, storytelling, inclusion, and cultural programming for years. Would you elaborate on how art festivals contribute a great deal to the growth of visual arts ecosystem in India?
Thank you so much, Athmaja, for having me as part of Tuesday Talks. It is a pleasure to be here and speak to you about the kind of exposure that I've had, the kind of experiences that I've had, and my takeaways from the art space. And which is where, when I look at art, because of the kind of experience or the kind of festivals that I have been a part of over the past decade, right from a Kala Ghoda Arts Festival to La La Land to Garmi Ki Chutti to now Art of India, it is not just visual arts, but the entire gamut of arts, which includes performing arts as well. So dance, theater, literature, cinema, all of that. And I feel festivals are a great way for people to, the audience, to come in and engage with different languages of their preferred art form. So I may be somebody who would love books. And when I go into, say, the literature section of Kala Ghoda, which happens at the David Sassoon Library, it isn't just about fiction. There is the entire spectrum of literature. There is poetry. There's all of that, and that is what I think festivals do. So it is about me going and discovering different forms of or different languages of the kind of art that I like, and which is why I feel festivals are phenomenal. Because when I, even with Art of India, if you talk about visual art specifically, uh, when people have come in, they have discovered photography, they have discovered textile art, they have discovered folk art, so some things that they may not have, or it may be something that they've just seen in books or on the internet, but here they're present and they're looking at that art form in person. So I think that that platform that it gives them is phenomenal, and which is why festivals, I do what I do, which is to be a part of festivals.
No, it makes sense. And I want to sort of follow up with the question about you mentioned Kala Ghoda Festival. So it's one of the most prominent cultural festivals of the country. So I'm curious to know how you sort of balance the sort of the sort of scale which Kala Ghoda comes with, and by not compromising on the sort of artistic experience and exposure you give to your audiences. So how do you balance that?
uh, that's actually an interesting question, because at Kala Ghoda Arts Festival, when I have been a part of it, I don't think we've ever looked at scale and artistic seriousness in to be in an either or relationship. I think it's always been complementary. So while you will find, in each of those segments, again, to just go back to one point that I made in the previous one, that people come in and they discover different languages of a certain art form. So while you will have the entire rampart row that has been cleared off for just visual arts, and the entire road is full of installations. There are different, because of the kind of artists who come on board. um, there are certain art forms which will make you pause and think for a certain period of time, whereas there is the entire segment of the children's installations as well, where they are expressing their thought process in a much simpler manner. So I think festivals give a platform for artists who have a range of expressions, and which is why it is never looked at as either scale, or because of the scale we have to bring down the artistic seriousness. Yes, it is not a biennale, Nonetheless, when people come in, uh, I think there is enough that kind of gets their thought process rolling, and artists are able to present their thought in with as much artistic integrity as they would in probably any gallery.
Yeah, it's great to know. And one thing I feel about festivals is key, the sort of community it brings together, and how it can also help bring children into, sort of introduce them to the various ways art works and art has a sense in our daily life. So, would you tell us about any unique experience or any unique learning you had about art and community while you worked at Kala Ghoda or say Art of India? Yeah, it's great to know. And
So, community building has been one of my biggest joys. In fact, I think so. Even as a South Indian, as growing in my growing up years, uh, we've all been part of the Warrior Samajam. So for us, this twice in a year, we would all get together with warriors in our city, and we would be having our dances and music and drawing competitions and all of that. So community building has always been a very very strong element or a strong attraction for me towards festivals, and I feel it just renders itself so beautifully, because irrespective of who is coming in, like at least at Art of India, as part of, while we have all of the entire display around, we also have a very strong programming. And I think that goes today for most festivals, where there you can actually come across, you can meet the artists, you can have discussions with the artist. We bring together people who are from a certain space. Say for example, we've had people who talk about art as an investment, or we've had experts who come together to speak about the journey of Indian art from various lenses. So all of these curated by Dr. Alka Pandey, and it gives people a platform where they're able to come together with people, with co-art lovers, discuss these ideas, be open to new ideas. And then we've seen friendships happen there, and people kind of from there take off and then staying connected, and maybe the next year they've come back together because art bound them, and it kind of stayed. And I feel similarly with Kala Ghoda, or for that matter, there is this very small IP that I have created called Kalakarva. And the whole idea of that was to create art and culture also, as, to kind of bring that into a central space where it brings people together. It becomes the reason for people to come together. So, in that sense, I think festivals offer a great platform, to bring people who might want to engage with art, who might want to explore art a little more and stir those conversations.
so in the in our conversation with community building and all, something I'm really curious about is you know and you have been part of one of the greatest festivals all over of India, like Kala Ghoda or even Art of India, is like the sort of scale in which it brings all these different sort of artists, the indigenous artists as well. So it's like tremendous.
Right.
So in a very practical sense, how does this participation in such art festivals sort of create longer term value for artists? Like what is the aftermath of such participations? What are the possibilities that are available for artists?
That's actually a very interesting one, and I will. So both of these are very different formats. You know, you have Kala Ghoda Arts Festival, which is predominantly a street art festival, and hence you have, and it's multidisciplinary, so you have dance, you have music, theater, cinema, all of these, and the artists are present there. Like even for cinema, I think what the curatorial team for cinema does is to ensure that we try and bring in the filmmaker, we try and bring in some of the actors at the festival, so that the audience has a has a way of interacting with the artist once they have seen it, and what that allows is for the artist who has been a part of the project also to know how are people responding to their art. Like, people say that art, there are certain forms of art or there are certain pieces of art which are timeless. Now, what is it that makes it timeless? How are people relating to their art, even over years? So those are things that artists get to know. And that's the same thing that goes into Art of India as well, where I have actually seen that there are artists who come in, where Art of India, of course, is the showcase, and the artwork is there for almost 9 days. There are artists who've come in for about 4 to 5 days, who are there, who are interacting with the audience who comes in, talking to them, because what Art of India does, because it is something that is presented by the Times of India, is the cross section of people who come in may not necessarily be just the art buyers, or they may not be collectors, rather. These may be probably first time art buyers, or these are people who've started a collection but who are trying to still figure out what is the kind of art that really draws me. So at that point, for an artist to be there talking about their artwork creates a very strong bond in the minds of the buyer with the artist, or in the minds of the person who is uh, you know in a way consuming that art with the artist, because they know where the artist is coming from. They know what was in their mind, when that artwork was being formed. There are little details that kind of get discussed. So I feel from that point of view, it really helps art festivals really give even artists a platform where they can interact with the audience. It isn't just an artwork that is, sitting in a gallery, or somebody has, taken online and taken it from there, or they're viewing it on YouTube. Here is an opportunity for them to meet the audience directly and know what are they saying, what are they taking back from the artwork. So I think the only additional point that I wanted to kind of make over there is, when there is an art festival, it's not just about the showcase. It is also about hands-on, being a part of it. Like, it allows you to interact with the audience. It allows the audience to come forward and actually practice that art. There will be workshops that are part of most festivals. So somebody who may not have done say painting, or say you know crochet, or origami, festivals give somebody that opportunity to come be a part of it and actually do some bit. And I think when one actually creates art in whatever way, and this isn't just about visual arts. It's, say, they participate in a dance workshop, or they're even part of, say, a drum circle. I think something changes inside them. Like, art just has that natural quality where it changes something inside them. And I feel, that change is very important for people to experience themselves. And art festivals really allow for that.
So I sort of want to add on to this whole discussion about the public and the audience, and want to know how such art festivals sort of democratize and sort of may change the usual discourse the public has with visual arts, especially how it really positively, what how do you think it positively affects audiences relationship with visual arts, and how they see art, because it's you're as you said, it's being made accessible to a new range of people, which usually it's not possible. So what are the ways in which it really does end up benefiting the visual art culture in the long run?
I think when somebody walks into an art gallery, there is the number of people who would walk into an art gallery to see an exhibition is still just kind of growing, where people are getting over that initial reluctance. People are getting over that whole sense of, oh, I don't know about art, main kya karu wahan pe, so people are gradually getting over that. And we have seen now, we just closed the fifth edition of Art of India. And I have been part of it since inception, right from the first edition that happened in Gandhinagar to it going to just Delhi and Bombay, then Delhi, Jaipur, and Bombay. And each of these cities, when we have gone, there has been an overwhelming response where people have spoken about how the showcase really brings forth such a range of artworks. It's not just the masters, or it's not just contemporary artworks. But what Art of India does is really, 250, 300 artworks which cover a wide range. So right from photography, sculpture, installations, textile installations, to this year we had origami. So as the curator, Dr. Alka Pandey has also made sure that we've had that kind of entire spread where the people who come in get to know different forms of visual art, and in a way the story of how Indian art has evolved. So there have been times when we've had the folk art section, for example, is a very, very vibrant part of the art of India every year. So the way we've had, say, pitchwise, which are maybe about 5 to 7 years old, to pitchwise, which are about 40 years old, you know, which are displayed next to each other. So people actually get to see how has that also evolved, how has the kind of detailing in it changed. So it is something that people see in front, and no level of reading theory about it is really going to bring that same effect. And that is where we find a lot of, it's very encouraging to see how many people, how many in that, how would I say, non art collectors are coming in. So at multiple instances in the last edition, we had first time buyers come in, and they've started their collection with an artwork from Art of India. So that has also been a very interesting journey for us to see. We have children who come in, we have schools who bring their children in. So be it Delhi, Jaipur, or Bombay, we've had schools who brought their children in because they just want to expose them to this rich language, that is available. So in that sense, yes, it's been very, very interesting to see how people respond to it.
Yeah. Even when I came to visit Art India, this is something I also noticed. Like all sort of people are coming. There are first time collectors who are like starting to look at artworks, and then they are in confusion.
Yeah.
But then Alchemy is there, everybody is there, so they are also
Right.
given a very positive experience of not just looking at it, learning about it. So it was very wonderful.
Yes.
And now I
Yes.
sort of want to talk about your firm Kala Nomad. You have spoken in Kala Nomad. The sort of idea is that you consider brands as cultural producers and not just advertisers. So that is a very relevant distinction to make. And would you like to sort of elaborate on that? How brands, the possibility of brands becoming cultural producers rather than just being mere advertisers or sponsors?
Yeah. In fact, it's been a very interesting journey for me to arrive at what I want to do. So I come from a corporate communications background. So I spent about 15 years in corporate communications, working with brands, working with corporates. Before I came to be a part of the art and culture space, with where I started volunteering with Kala Ghoda Arts Festival. So that's how my journey began, and which is why I have always felt it is important for the ecosystem of that is present for art to really be to bring that together. And this ecosystem comprises not just of artists or not just of people like me, but the audience is a very big part, which we've spoken about. And the fourth pillar, I would say, for art to be successful, of a culture to really come into, to kind of take its position, is corporates, is brands, because art and culture need patronage. So what is it that how is it that we can work with brands to really make sure that the fourth pillar is also present strongly. And that is how I started working as part of Kala Nomad, with with Kala Nomad, I started working with brands. So there are three ways, in fact, which I have which I have kind of figured out by now. Um, One, of course, is with festivals where they come on board to support the festival. Like, for example, I think it was when in a Kala Ghoda Arts Festival itself, we had the Exim Bank who came on board. And most people asked us, what is it that, why is Exim Bank supporting this? And they had a very unique take on it, where they were like, oh, we have our artisans. There are artisans who we support to take their works to, internationally. Here is a platform which is in India, in the city. And why should they not be here? That's how they came on board. So it wasn't about, oh, my brand has to be there and I need to be given, but for them it is about supporting the artisans that they are a part of, and hence they became a part of the ecosystem that Kala Ghoda Arts Festival is offering. So sponsorship is of course one big part of it, because I feel it is, they have the power to shape popular culture. So I like to be at that point where I am bringing the brand together with the best fit of the festival. So it could be a Kala Ghoda Arts Festival, it could be a La La Land, it could be a Garmi Ki Chutti, which is a festival that is for children to explore the joys of summer the way we used to do as a child, which was without devices. So, how do I bring brands for whom these might be the right fit, so that these festivals can kind of go out? So that is one part that I look at. The second part I look at is where brands actually host these conversations. So just to give you an example, I work with Baya Design. Baya is this design, brand which brings traditional art forms rather, in a very contemporary design setting. It's been founded by Shibani Dasgupta Jain. And they had this view that we would like to host conversations at our space so that there is a reason for people to come in. But how do we do it? And how do we make sure that, and it is, of course, at the end of the day, it is about buyer design, it is about taking the brand out there. But what is an interesting way of doing it? So we actually hosted, a poetry evening together. Now, poetry by itself does not have a direct connect with what they're selling there. However, how can we design it thematically? That's what we kind of work together, and we continue to work together on that. So that was another way, where they actually curate these conversations. And the third, and I would say the most interesting piece, that I do now is where I work with corporates on cultural interventions for their employees. So I work with Merck Life Sciences on that. And what we have done, one of the examples that I'll give you that we have done of, is they had this requirement where they would want to have, they would want to have certain themes kind of drawn out and communicated to their employees, because it is a wide cross section, both in terms of gender, in terms of ages, all of that. So how do you bring them together to be more empathetic to each other? And we did that through theater. We actually did that through where people, they were actually making their own scripts and they were role playing, so using art, using culture in employee engagement. That is also something that I have kind of how do I say, developed as we went along. So it's been interesting because these are all audiences for both corporates and for art. So the synergy is right there. It's just about figuring out interesting ways of doing it where it's a win-win for everybody concerned. So that's how really the idea of Kala Nomad is, I would say, in many ways is still evolving.
Right. And Mira, you have worked with children and inclusive storytelling and even inclusive event design as well. So I really want to know how that has shaped your way of thinking about art and even festivals. Like how important is to bring in inclusivity and sort of think also put children in the center of things at times.
So I think for me, the journey has been the other way. uh, because I have been part of festivals, because I have been, when I say I have been part of festivals, not just as an organizer, but even as somebody who's attended festivals. I mean, through my childhood, I think we have gone to many of these cultural festivals that have happened in the city. I think Sundays were really always about those. And I think in that sense, also the idea of a festival has evolved over time. But the point is, I have always been a part of festivals, and um, I have experienced firsthand how, the kind of audience who comes there may not all be involved because it may not be accessible for some of them, and these are things that we do otherwise. Like in our home, when we have a guest who comes in, we make sure that things are accessible for them. So it is really just about taking that same concept into a festival, into what I do. So that has really been my guiding light, where it isn't a question, it isn't an afterthought about inclusivity or about accessibility. It has to be inbuilt, and it has to be friendly for children, because there are families have to come together, the whole part of community building, because that is where so much of their learning begins. Seeing how their parents are, or seeing how their friends are kind of interacting with each other. So I feel, for me, festivals, like, be it children, I started spending time with children, I would say in about 2019, where I started doing storytelling for them, because I felt it wasn't happening enough in my neighborhood, in my community. And taking that idea, to into something called Kahani Karwa, which I'm doing now, which is again just a storytelling collective in regional languages. So those are things that I feel have to be done. And yeah, so I think it's really been for me the other way around, where I started with seeing how, you know spaces that I grew up in have always been inclusive, have always been friendly for children, and then kind of bringing it into festivals. Okay.
So now we're sort of wrapping up, and as somebody who has been closely associated with festivals and that sort of cultural ecosystem for over a decade, how do you see these sort of spaces, evolve, and what are the possibilities that the future might hold for them? What are your predictions? What do you anticipate?
um so I would just want to answer it slightly differently, where I think one of the things that I am seeing is, while of course there are large scale festivals and there are festivals that people are now traveling for, I am trying to kind of go back to the micro festivals, the smaller community festivals, which I feel is very, very important. And in many ways, it is sorely lacking. So, like, if I were to talk about, say, a city like Bombay, um, there is a Kala Ghoda Arts Festival, which attracts about 20 lakh people every year. That's huge. Uh, there is, of course, the India Art Fair that happens in Delhi, or Art of India, of course, which again happens in certain pockets. But can there be smaller festivals that happen in every suburb, where even if I do not go, to a large festival which is crowded, there is something in my suburb that I can go to. Why do I have to travel to Bandra? Why do I have to travel to town? Why do I have to travel to Lower Parel to be a part of these amazing experiences? Why can I not have them right here at walking distance from my home? That's the thought that I am trying to build, and that is where my IP that I started, that I told you about also earlier, which is Kalakarva, which is about community based art and culture festivals, or like a art and culture community in your own suburb, where, say, once a month there is something that happens in your own suburb, so that there is that constant exposure. Because if I have to travel all the way to another place and I need to go there, the interest has to be so high. Whereas if it's in my own suburb, even if my interest is lukewarm, it isn't too far. the effort is not too much, and I may end up going there. So, in that way, is there also a possibility then to grow the audience who eventually begin to appreciate art, in its multiple forms? So, that is something that I feel the time is really here. The time is now, and it's something that I am really championing in a very big way.
Yeah. So, Meera, thank you so much for joining us for Tuesday Talks presented by Abir Pothi. This is a sort of information that is not readily available. So, I really appreciate the sort of time you took in and to share your expertise and your experience with Kala Nomad with us. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Athmaja. And this has been phenomenal to be given this opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you. Thank you so much to you and Abir Pothi.